Like freshman year, or like at what point in high school?
What point in high school? Yeah, like freshman year.
Yeah. Okay.
Middle school, sure, we were learning about mental health a little bit in health class, but eh, it wasn't
Yeah.
like something you really thought about, at least not
Something you
for
really
me.
thought about. Yeah. Yeah.
And definitely not in a black household. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense. So I've never. All the health classes that I've had, have been the typical like.
I've been physical stuff.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where they talk to you about like what not to do, right? So you have the this is what this is, and this is what this does. Don't do that.
Right.
But I would say it was like that, okay, this is mental health, and then we're like kind of thrown into a pandemic. So it really became a hands-on lesson at that point.
Pandemic was...
Like it really became a hands-on lesson, because by that point it was just like, okay, this is what it is, and now we're finally kind of getting a hold of it, getting a grasp to it, what it is, how it affects us, and how we need to care for it, and then boom, pandemic. And from, if I could use like a teacher analogy, it was like, here's the lesson, here's the practice. Because it was like, this is what it is, now we gotta like go do it. And
which is different.
the way of doing it from what we probably could have done should the pandemic have not been a thing, two completely different lesson plans. To stay with the teacher analogy, would be two different kind of like lesson plans. And then you said something really, really good about mental health in black households. Can we talk about that? Because
we should probably talk about that.
It's not one of those things where you're, how do I put this? We didn't, right. It really is just a breath before you got to say it. But I feel like, okay, so our parents and their parents, can we address the fact that they didn't really have the resources for it, though?
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't have the resources to, what is it? Our generation is fortunate enough to know what it is, right? And to know how to, I guess, better care for it, but their generation didn't. So, what was that like for you, living in the household that maybe does your mom know like a lot of mental health stuff?
I'd say she does, but like, I don't think she's ever done any therapy or anything like that per se. I know my brother did a little bit, my older brother, and that was a thing for like a couple months. Yeah, just
it's
a couple
hard.
months.
It's hard having a therapist though. At least for me, because it's a discouraging process, because you gotta find the perfect. You gotta find not the perfect one, but your best fit. And sometimes the process of it is really, really discouraging. It's because you got to go through. Have you ever?
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I've never had a therapist.
So the process for me was weird. It's because I found one, thought he was great, was like, and then realized like as we went along, and was like, I'm not really.
Was he black?
He was.
Okay.
You know me, Shane. I'm not gonna have.
I was like, I hope he wasn't.
Oh no. But my preference is a person of color. And can we also talk about the great thing considered black excellence, that a lot of black people are going into this field now?
Yeah.
A lot of black people are going to this field, and I think it's great. Like, I think it's awesome. It's because now I can have a therapist that looks like me.
Right.
And I think that's cool.
That makes a difference.
It does. And it makes you feel like more comfortable in your sessions and stuff, is because you can always talk about unpack life issues, but unpack societal issues too. So, what's your process like for mental health now from, for say freshman year, right? Has it changed? Has it gotten better? What have you realized over time?
I realized that I need to start creating something that works better. Right now, my process is journaling. That helps. And then just like taking a shower, doing something like self-care that can take me away from that space of what I just wrote about, like it's usually an intense emotion, usually a
yeah.
negative intense
Usually a
emotion.
negative, intense emotion.
And it might like turn into a poem, honestly. Those like
Let's talk about that.
Free rights.
Yeah, I'm not sliding past that. Let's
no,
talk
we
about
can
that.
we can slide
No,
past
we're
that.
not sliding past that. We're not sliding past that. Talk your poetry. Where does that come from? Right? Because I've heard you do poetry before. Okay, fun fact, you guys. So I attended a poetry slam, and to my not so surprised but very pleasant surprise, Cheyenne was competing to be part of the Do More poetry team.
Yes, the
They're
Baltimore
nat-
City
they're-
Youth Poetry Team.
They're like national poetry team, right? People, they're national poetry team. They're national poetry team. So, first of all, I think before this episode is over, if you have anything you remember, you wanna
Might be able to give a little
drop us
piece.
something real quick. You gotta do the motion. You gotta do it. And
Drop.
Right.
A little
There
something.
it is.
Gotta
There-
go.
You gotta do the drop.
Gotta
something
do
real
the
quick.
drop. Okay.
But talk about that. Like, do you write poetry when you're in your feelings, or do you just have an idea and flesh it out as it goes along? Like, where does your poetry come from? Because I feel like, and we're gonna talk about the creative writing aspect too, behind how how writing can help. But I just like, as a quick thing, like, where does your poetry come from?
So I'd say both of those things. Definitely as an outlet, like if I'm feeling an extreme emotion, okay, let me go write about it. And then I'll be like doing a free write, and then things will start seeing, like I'll see a rhythm in there,
It'll just
some
like
metaphors, and I'm like,
come
oh,
poetic.
that's a poem. And
Yeah.
then just keep like
Yeah.
running with it.
How does writing help you, like through processing feelings? How does writing help you with that?
Writing allows me to like get it out of my head. Like, do you have anxiety? Yep, that answers it.
I got nervous hearing that question. Does that answer it?
Yep. So that answers it.
That answers it.
I also do. It's like my mind just can't stop going. It's just thought after thought after thought after thought. And writing it down, like, puts it somewhere where it's not in my head. And then I can have a clear mind. Even if it's just, like, writing down, like, one repetitive thought. If I just write it down, it goes
you have
away.
it in them. And can we talk about that? Like, when you write, or when you're writing a thought, or when you're journaling, your pen and your paper don't judge you. Like, if you really think about it, when you write, your pen and your paper or whatever you write on, like, me personally, my notes app, I have a whole folder, a locked folder
Notes app.
that's got everything in it, and it takes no prisoners, but that does not judge me. And I don't have to feel judged by, like, okay, somebody's gonna see this. I have the option to either share whatever. If I'm writing a letter to somebody, I have the option to share that, or I have the option to just lock it and leave it. But it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't judge. Does that help you?
That does help me. The fact that it's not a person there, because like people can sometimes make you a bit nervous.
No, when you write, it gets, and that's why I don't like creative writing assignments in school. Is because I don't.
Oh, because like the teacher's gonna read
I don't
it.
Yeah, it's that, and also it's like, it feels like it's timed. It feels like it's pressure to be that, like I don't want to say the best creative assignment, or the assignment that gets everybody thinking,
Yeah, I
So
feel that.
having creative writing assignments or having creative writing stories is, it's pressure, because it's like, oh, well, what if I'm not the best one? What if this person gets more attention? If I'm home, I could care less. Creative or not creative,
Anything.
It is what it is, and anything goes. And I think I like that aspect of writing.
Yeah, but I used to like bottle in my emotions a lot, like so until they like explode.
What do you think the psychology is behind that, though? Because I used to do the same thing, but it's unhealthy, and you realize it's unhealthy, and it's unhealthy.
But you still do it.
But and it's still done. But the thing about it is, what do you like, from your honest opinion? And we can break it down as we go. But what do you think the nature is behind bottling? Because there are many different things to say about it and ways
Right.
you can hit it. But from your perspective and from your point of view of bottling, what was your biggest thing?
So, for me, as a Virgo and a perfectionist, bottling was a way to, like, kind of keep up that, you know, perfect image, like, to, like, fulfill those, like, expectations and standards of, like, the people around me or that I thought people had for me. That, like, pressure, it's mostly, like, that I put on myself. It's not really other people.
Self pressure.
So like bottling it in was a way to like one convince myself that I'm okay, like because you don't want to like feel like you're not okay, because then what? What do you do then? And also just to like be able to be there for other people, and you know sometimes it felt like I needed to be like the strong one or the one that's always okay, so that you know other people had a chance to like fall apart, but I needed a chance to fall apart.
You needed a chance to fall apart.
Yeah.
That I feel like, and let's talk about that strong friend mentality too. That strong friend mentality. Now, this is coming from the strong friend, okay? This is coming
Yep.
from the friend that everybody will call and be like, I am cracking.
Felt that.
But the one thing that we strong people forget is that we got to be stronger for ourselves before we can be stronger for anybody. We got to be stronger for us. Because I feel like it's unhealthy to be strong for somebody else and you can't be strong for yourself, because then you're just putting yourself in positions of being strong when you're pushing yourself beyond your limit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I had to realize with being the strong friend, is that essentially sometimes being the strong friend is nothing but self-sabotage.
Yep. It is. I mean, it is
Sometimes
self-sabotage.
being the strong one and being the one that holds everybody else up is self-sabotage. It's because, one, you're choosing to be the strong friend. Two, you're putting yourself in situations that you know for a fact that you just can't handle.
Yep.
And that was what I had the hardest thing dealing with. The biggest problem dealing with is that I was the strong friend. Like that's the sentence, I promise you. That's the whole sentence.
That's so
Was that I was the strong friend. Because that strong friend came from my need to be there for people. And don't get me wrong, when you have a big heart, you also got to guard that too. Is because when you have a big heart, you want to put yourself positions. Your heart and your brain wrestle when you have a big heart, I feel like. Is because
You need to say that again.
your mind goes like, you can't do this. You cannot do this. You have no need to do this, but your heart is like, but they need me.
Yeah.
And you got to battle with the,
And the heart's strong.
and you got to battle, and you got to like
Yeah.
it, and you got to wrestle with the, but they need me. And there's two outcomes. They don't get to have a strong friend, or you crack.
And they're both bad. It's like there's no winning.
And right, and that's what it feels like to those, like that you have to choose the lesser evils. And that's and in unpacking the strong friend mentality, one thing I found out is that it is okay to not be the strong friend all the time. And coming from the strong friend, coming from the strong friend, that's painful and that hurts. Have you ever had a time when you had to like what feels like wrestle with reality?
Yep. Sure. Yep.
Have like
So many times.
how did you, and you don't have to recall a specific instance, but how did you make it through that?
Wrestling with reality.
Wrestling with being the strong friend.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Or where, or
Do I even?
the question I asked, like, where are you in that process?
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Because I am still wrestling with that
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I'm more comfortable as a listener, I'd say. Like,
Mm,
when I'm the one like speaking, if it's just like me and my friend and we're talking, like I'm like more comfortable just like,
listening,
being there for them and stuff.
listening.
And then when it's like, "Oh, how are you?"
I didn't think we'd get this far.
"Oh, I don't know how I am." It's like
Hmm.
in that situation, I don't know how I am, but then when I'm like alone, then I know how I am. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, I need to tell somebody this." But then like I'm talking to my friend, "How are you?"
You're more comfortable
"Good."
being the listener.
Yeah.
So when cause you are a great listener.
Yeah.
I think that's important too. I mean, as far as tying into mental health, I think that's important too, is because sometimes you just need people to listen.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle with a lot of mental health, is because there was nobody to listen. There was nobody to listen. There was nobody that didn't want to just do this and just do that and just do this. Sometimes you need that release so that, like I said, you can make a logical. That was the word I was
Yeah,
about to say.
logical.
Logical. You can make a logical decision, because when it comes to mental health, some of that stuff is you just need to unpack it and let your feelings be put in a safe space, and then you can make a decision upon how do you move forward from that instance.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really, really, really important. So, in your process of mental health, what have you discovered about yourself?
I already said a big one, that I'm more comfortable listening.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's gotten in my way because sometimes I need to be listened to. Um, and that's uncomfortable for me, but it's what I need. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like that conflict. And I'm still like dealing with that to this day. But knowing that about myself has helped me a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in opening up and,
Mm-hmm.
talking about things I need to talk about. Another thing which I learned at with Do More over the summer about myself and like mental health. I learned that I could find strength through being vulnerable,
That's
which
a good
I,
one.
I didn't know that was something that I could do.
That's a
And
good
I
one.
think anyone could really do it. And it was hard because I was writing poetry about stuff like I didn't want to talk about or felt comfortable talking about. But then like once I did it and shared it, like everyone was able to be changed by it.
Did writing poetry, did it start to push you past
It
that
did
comfort
help.
zone?
Yeah, I can thank poetry for that. It helped me with my mental health and with being more comfortable with vulnerability in general.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn to answer the question now,
Yep,
isn't
it's
it?
your turn.
Yeah. One thing that I have discovered about myself, in this mental health journey of mine, is your identity is not wrapped up in your talent. I found a way with everything that I do from then to now, distract myself and put myself in the the light of this is my talent, and not and to be fair, not really know who I am from this analogy, not really know who I am backstage,
Wow.
not really know who I am behind the scenes, and not discover what makes me happy, what ticks me, what triggers me, what doesn't make me happy, what brings me joy, what helps me to care for myself, what I like doing, what I don't like doing. That is a part of discovery that I'm still walking, but that's also the part of discovery that hurt the most. And the reason why it hurt the most is because I felt like I had been lying to people, and I felt like I had been lying to myself. because everybody knew me as this person, what the camera see, what the public sees, what they see on stage, what I can do, what I can offer. Whereas my humanity is suffering because I'm distracting myself with a stage. Not necessarily I'm acting or I'm performing, I'm distracting myself. That was the part that I had to wrestle with, and that was the part that hurt the most. Was because then I had to go back and forgive myself because I felt like I was lying to myself, and then find myself afterwards. That was the part. That's the part I think for me, in a lighthearted note, that's the part I think for me is the most ghetto. Is because I still got to do the work for the aftermath of it. Like I can be aware all day long, but you still got to walk the process. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't trade this mental health and healing journey for anything else in this world. Is because I know that they're like it's going to be better on the other side, and it's going to be a daily thing. And when I say by the grace of God, I mean it with every fiber of my being. But it's also, for me, it's also allotting more time for self-care. I didn't find out I like podcasting until I had to sit in the house and deal with myself. Like that's me being funny, but that's me being actually dead serious. Is that I didn't even know I liked doing any of this until I had to sit in the house. Which is an interesting thing. And now that like the pandemic isn't over, but the pandemic is lightened up much more, I can say like this is stuff that I can say I like doing. And whereas I know what I don't like doing, I know what ticks me, I know what triggers me, I know what makes me feel a certain way and how it makes me feel, and I'm able to address the feeling. It's not like I just say, I don't know, man, I can't deal with it. Because there was a time where I was there, but now I can say, I feel like this because of this specific incident that happened, and it reminded me of this. And then the thing to go after that is that whatever that instance was, you got to deal with the part of you that's still connected to what happened.
Yeah, because that's where it started.
That's where you got to process it. And that's the painful part of all of it. Is that you still got to deal with that part, and then you got to find out how to detach yourself from the identity that the trauma gave you versus who you really are. I feel like in my personal experience with this and this walk is that trauma alters perspective and trauma creates identity. And when a thing happens to you, it puts you in a position where it's like assuming the position. You're given the instance, and in this case, you're given the thing happened to you against your will, against your better judgment, and that now becomes a part of your identity versus becoming a part of your story. Make sense?
You're going to have to explain that one.
A part of your identity is something that you cling to for comfort, I feel like sometimes. And B, you assume it as if it's still a daily thing. Whereas becoming a part of your story, or old folks would say your testimony, is it happened, but I made it through. Versus identity, it happens and I still feel like I'm in it.
Okay.
Would be the best explanation that I have for that. Versus it didn't. It happened and I moved through it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there's a difference between like moving through it and saying, "Oh, like this experience like helped shape who I am because of what I learned from it, not because of it." Like
Because
that
of
isn't
it.
me. Okay, that's what. Okay.
Yeah.
And you figured that out, like that the difference.
I figured that out in the most painful way possible. It's because I had to live through it. Living through it and hearing about it, I realized there are two different things when it comes to mental health. Because you can hear about it all day. You can hear about the therapy. You can hear about the trauma. You can hear about all that stuff. But living through it is a whole different ball game. It's because now you gotta feel the pain of it versus hearing other people talk about the pain of it. You gotta feel it for yourself and you gotta deal with it.
Yeah.
Case in point, it's ghetto. With that,
Case in point, it's ghetto.
case in point, it is ghetto. Cheyenne, you don't know how much I appreciate you for being on here with me.
I appreciate you for asking me to be on here.
Y'all, I was really, really excited about this. Like, I dipped after all the meetings. Was like, see y'all, so I could come and do this. Thank you.
Of course.
You have no idea. Y'all, listen, shameless plug. Do more poetry. Like, you're gonna see her face. Do more poetry. Baltimore School for the Arts. Cheyenne, would you like to give us a little bit of poetry?
A little poetry.
No,
All right,
you
we'll
can drop
do a
it.
little poetry.
You gonna drop it? All right.
Drop it in, then we can talk about it.
Then we can talk about it.
All right. I'm not even going to tell you the name of the piece.
This is why I'm excited, is because I've never heard this one before. So this is the first time for everybody in here.
For everyone, except for me. Red of underlying anger. Frustration from past generations in my blood cells is the anger of my ancestors, pumping through my veins the pain of losing my fellow brothers and sisters, the perpetuation of dehumanization, the empty, for my people lost, the void left, the stories untold, fueling the rage in my bloodstream as other humans team up against people that look like me. Orange of persistence, of being torn down and ripped apart, of a broken heart stitched together with ambition, a purpose, a mission, the sting of acidity causing heartburn. My heart burns, choked up tears, leftovers from past years, pushing me forward, the grip of stubborn keeping me strong. Yellow of joy. Contagious are the smiles of those who were there when my hands were tied. I stare, inviting in past lives, but still I smile. My glow I radiated, somehow I thought it compensated for the darkness around me. My art mostly showed on stage, my shine kept audiences engaged. Green of growth, nature, connection to the earth plants grow from the soil that feeds them. I've been fed by the world, nurtured by the grass, so easily stepped on and cuts in my skin, self-inflicted bad dreams, darkness within, a hand reaching from the ground, my soil pushing me out. I learned as I reached my branches to the sky, each leaf representing a new lesson, blue of responsibility. Born to serve a purpose, God-given gifts, I exhibit expectations, but sky's the limit, piles of incomplete work, I'm in it. Due dates becoming dates I never make, dates past due, can I renew procrastination, sleeping through a book I thought I closed, self-renewed by the perfectionism in my bones, the bones I never break. I can't seem to break the expectations placed, but I can break myself. Blue of burnt out, of sadness, lonely, lost friends as I pretend to be put together when I have just as many missing assignments except mine are on my self-care list. Purple of creativity, expressing myself through metaphors and similes, monologues and beats, measures and notes, pens and pencils, drawing connections to myself, sharpening my pencil of wisdom, a genius in the making, a legacy, my rainbow. And that's the piece. Deep. Thank you. Wow, I made Mitchell speechless.
That's the episode. That's the episode, dog. We can. Ooh. Yeah, we can. How did you? Just talk about it.
All right, I'll talk about it. There was an exercise over the summer. I worked at Dumore, the Maya Baraka program at Dumore, and it's about, I think, 5 weeks. And we would just like get together. I was in the poetry cohort, and we would just write poetry to different prompts, and I believe the prompt this time was to pick like something to write about, and like write about it in like different aspects. So like my topic I picked was color, and then I had to like relate each color to a different thing. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna make this a poem about myself, and like, you know, the different colors that I feel like represent me. And that's how I wrote it. And I didn't really plan it out that way. I just started with red, and then I went to orange, and I was like, oh, let me just do the whole rainbow. And I was like, oh, this piece is about me. And then that's why it's called My Rainbow. And yeah, that was the first poem I performed there, and everybody loved it. And I was like, all right.
Wow. So that's my first time hearing it. Their whole reaction that just happened, that was completely real, because I've never heard that piece before. And now that I'm hearing it, she's going to get a call from me later on in the day with a lot of words. Yeah. For more information, like us on Facebook at Baltimore City Schools. Follow our YouTube on City Schools TV. Like us on Instagram at Balt City Schools. For more updates on mental health, you can click www.baltimore, it's actually Baltimore City Schools.org/mental-health-updates. There we go. I think I got it this time. And with that, these have been your announcements. Govern yourselves accordingly.